Hello everyone. So today we are going to start the biomolecules. Now the name suggests what does it mean biomolecules, right? So you would be knowing that all of us, all of the substances around us are basically made up of chemicals. So even the human beings are also not exception, and even all those organisms which are observed in living system are also not the exception. So we can say that every living organism, may be it a bacteria, it may be algae, virus, anything, whatever it may be, a human being, animal, all these organisms are made up of some type of chemical substances. Now these chemical substances which are present in organisms are simply called as biomolecules. So the molecules which are basically present in the biological system is called as biomolecules, right? So this was a brief introduction. Now we'll be discussing about the different type of biomolecules which are present in our body. And like this will be the uniformly distributed. They will be present in all of the organism, right? From the bacteria to the most complex organism like human beings, right? So it will be carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. So these are some specific type of biomolecules which are found in all the organisms. So these are the biomolecules, are those substances which are present in living organisms and are responsible for different biochemical reactions. You can write it down. So biomolecules, what are biomolecules? Biomolecules are molecules or chemical substances present in living organism responsible for all the biochemical reaction occurring inside an organism. And we know that biochemical reaction are the one which is responsible for the different functions of an organism. So all the functions of an organism are carried out due to the biochemical reactions, and these biochemical reactions are carried out with the help of biomolecules. So we can say that the biomolecules play a very important role in life. If it is not there, the survival or the functioning of an organism is not possible, and hence it becomes so important for us to study these biomolecules, their properties and their types. Okay, so what are we going to study? We are going to study the different biomolecules which are so important for body, not our body only, but for the whole living system, and how do they function and what types they are. Okay, so one thing keep in mind, we are going to study in a generalized manner. Like these are the biomolecules which will be found in all the organisms, right from kingdom Monera to the kingdom Animalia. Okay, so I hope the things are clear to you. Okay, so let us see. When we see the biomolecules, it would be made up of chemicals. All organisms are made up of chemicals. Let us take up human beings, right? So human body is also made up of chemicals. Now these chemicals should be derived from the atmosphere or should be derived from the surrounding, right? Now when we compare the amount of the same chemicals that are present in human beings to the amount which is present in the earth's crust. Okay, so how much difference do we observe? And this difference tells a lot. Okay, this difference is basically tells us that how we are evolved. Okay, so let us see the amount of hydrogen which is present in earth's crust is 0.14%, but in the case of human body it will be around 0.5%. It will be 0.5%, 0.50%, right? 0.50. Carbon in the earth's crust it is only 0.03%. That's so less. But when we compare to the human being, our body will be consisting 18.5% of carbon. If it means that if I am weighing 100 kg, then 13.5 kg of my body will be made up of carbon. So this is a really big number compared to the amount of carbon present in the earth's crust, that is only 0.03%. Oxygen, it is 46, and in body it's 65. Nitrogen in earth's crust it is very negligible, but in the case of body it is around 3.3%. Sulfur you can see again. Sodium you can see. Sodium in the earth's crust is found in much higher amount compared to the human body. It's only 0.2%. Calcium 3.6%, 1.5%. Magnesium 2.1, in our body 0.1. So here silicon 27% is found in earth's crust, but in the case of our body it is so negligible, we cannot consider it so much. So here you can see the things which are found in higher amount in earth's crust are basically present in lower amount in human body. You can observe in the lower table, right? The sulfur, sodium, calcium, all these are the different type of metallic ions particularly, or non-metals as well. So these are the ions, okay, so which are basically found, it's very negligible amount in the case of human body, but present in higher amount in the atmosphere. But when we see these substances like hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, which are present very little amount of or less amount in the atmosphere, but is present in very high amount in the human body compared to this Earth's crust. So there is some sort of pattern which is observed over here. Okay, and let us see. So when we consider the human body, what all the different elements are present in abundance. So it may be asked as a question. So when we consider as a abundance by mass percent, so the oxygen will be the most abundant material present in our body by mass. Okay, then after the oxygen it will be carbon, nitrogen and hydrogen. Many of you people basically will believe that it's a carbon which is present in the higher amount. No, it's the oxygen. Why it is oxygen? Because the 70 to 75% of body is basically made up of water. And this water will be consisting two number of hydrogen and one number of oxygen. But when we consider the mass of oxygen is more greater than the hydrogen, that is around 8 times greater than hydrogen. Okay, so when we consider the amount of the mass of the body, we will be considering that oxygen will be present in the most abundance, and then after oxygen will be the carbon, then nitrogen, and lastly it will be the hydrogen. So these things has to be taken care. You should be knowing this because it may be asked in the question. Okay, so what is biomolecules? Now we have seen the biomolecules. What as we have defined it is that all the chemical substances present in an organism which are responsible for biochemical reaction, we have said it as a biomolecule. But there is again another catch. Now the different substances that are present in body can be again can be classified into two different types, that is organic and inorganic. Okay, so these inorganic substances are not that much amount in a body, right? And these inorganic substances would not be considered as a biomolecule totally. Okay, so here we will be considering all the carbon compounds, that's the organic compounds, all the carbon compounds that we get from a living tissue, that we obtain from a living organism is called as biomolecule. And along with these organic substances, our body, our human body or any of the living system do also consist the inorganic substances as well. So how can we get this? How can we separate the inorganic substances from the organic substances of a living organism? So that's a simple method. Let us discuss it. So what we can do, we can take a tissue, and then we will be drying it up. So when we dry the tissue, its mass will be decreased. Its mass will be reduced from around 50% or more than that. So suppose the tissue is weighing around 1 kg or 100 gram. After drying it up for the 4 to 5 days, what will happen? The mass of that tissue will now be around 50 grams. So it will be reduced. Why is it reduced? Can you tell me? It will be reduced because the most of the water which was present will be basically evaporated out, and as we have seen that the major part of a living system will be consisting the water. Okay, so this water will be released, and hence the mass will be now, and that is called as dry weight. What we call that as a dry weight. Now this dry tissue has to be burnt up, So when we burn this dry tissue, what will happen? All the chemical substances present in this tissue will be burned off. Okay, so the water which is present will be still some water will be present in that tissue as well. Then that will be basically removed as in the form of water vapor. While the organic substances, the substances which were consisting of the substances which were having this carbon will be just a minute. Sorry. The substances which were consisting the carbon will be removed of. Okay, let us see. All the carbon substances will basically react with oxygen and will be removed as in carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. Okay, whatever it may be. All the hydrocarbons will be removed in the form of CO2 plus H2O. Okay, all the hydrocarbons will be removed in the form of CO2 plus H2O. Okay, so the remaining part will be the ash. So when you burn 100 gram of tissue, it will be basically releasing the water, gas, and all the water, CO2, CO, etc. will be released. And then whatever the remaining part will be called as ash, and this is the ash. We can now differentiate, we can now analyze what all this inorganic substances are present in the ash. So all the inorganic substances like the calcium, like magnesium, like iron, like sodium, all these inorganic substances which will not be burnt up, okay, will be remaining in the form of ash. And now we can differentiate these elements from the ash, and these elements will be inorganic in nature. So you have to note it down. The inorganic substances of the tissue can be obtained by burning the tissue. Why? Because when we burn it, all the organic substances will be removed as in form of CO2 or carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. Okay, while the water will be removed in the form of H2O vapor, and the remaining part will be the ash, and this ash will be containing all the inorganic substances. So is that clear? Great. So that was about the organic substances and inorganic substances present in the body. Now let us say this was about the inorganic substance. Now what all organic substances are present in a body, or we can say what all components, not only organic substances, but what all components our body is made up of, or a cell is made up of. So when we speak about a single cell, the water will be the most abundantly present in the cell. So around 70 to 90% of the cell is basically composed of water. It will be consisting the water. Now this water amount will be different in different type of cells, like the cells which are present as in when we say watermelon, the watermelon will be having, the cell of the fruit will be having much more amount of water, but the cell of the root will not be having that amount of water. So it again depends on the type of cell. It depends on the type of cell where it is present. Okay, so it will be varying around 70 to 90%. After that, it will be protein, that is around 10 to 15%. This is something you have to take in note, that in the water is not considered as an organic substance, right? So the organic substances mainly which are present in the body are the proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids. So out of this, it's the protein which is the most highest amount present in our body. So that protein is around 10 to 15% in a cell particularly. In a cell, the protein will be present around 10 to 15%. After the cell, it will be the nucleic acid, which is around 5 to 7%. Then the carbohydrates, and last will be the lipids. So you have to keep this pattern in your mind, that the highest will be the protein, then the nucleic acid, carbohydrates, and lipids, and least will be the ions. These ions will be consisting of all the ions that may be positively charged, that may be negatively charged, like potassium, sodium, nitrogen will not be there, but different elements like ferrous will be there, chlorine will be there, potassium will be there. So this different, magnesium will be there, calcium will be there. These different ions will be also present, but it will be constituting around 1% only of a total cellular mass. So that's the protein which is basically most abundant. Okay, this is something you have to take in your note. Okay, so that list was basically telling us about the organic substances which are present in a body, in a cell particularly. Now different type of inorganic substances which are present, as we have seen that we can separate the inorganic substances by burning a tissue, right? So now the inorganic substances will be consisting the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. What is also considered inorganic substances, and different compounds like NaCl, CaCO3. These are the very few of which are basically described over here, which are present as an important one. Apart from this, there are different other as well, and depending on the type of organism, it will be varying again. So some of the organism may be consisting molybdenum, some of the organism may be consisting the iron, some of the organism may be consisting the even some will be also consisting like very noble elements as well. Okay, so it will be different, but the common and general constituents which are present are the sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. These ions are very important for the functioning of a cell. Okay, and they are mainly present in all the type of cells. Okay, so now we have seen that the organic substances are present and inorganic substances are present. Inorganic substance can be basically analyzed by burning the tissues and taking up the ash, and then carrying out the chemical analysis. As we know that we have already studied in chemistry that for the different type of elements we have got different type of chemical analysis. We can find out what type of chemical it is, okay, and what proportion it is present in a particular tissue. So apart from this, now let us start with the biomolecules, which are organic compounds, and how will we be able to analyze these organic compounds which are present in the living tissue. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to carry out a protocol, and under this protocol, what we do, first of all, we grind the tissue. The tissue which we take is basically we can take the dry one as well, we can take the wet one as well, right? The non-dried as well, fresh one as well. So we have to take this tissue, we have to then grind it, we have to crush it, we have to basically crush it, or we have to grind it in the mortar and pestle, okay? And we have to dissolve that particular thing in trichloroacetic acid. It's important. Trichloroacetic acid will be, it will Cl3 CH2COH. Okay. So trichloroacetic acid is a solvent used over here. It's something you have to keep in mind. You have to note it down. So what is it? We have to keep the solvent as a trichloroacetic acid, and within this trichloroacetic acid, we have to grind this tissue. And when we grind this tissue, afterwards we will be getting the slurry. A thick-like structure, thick slurry will be formed, which will be formed by the crushing the tissues. Okay. Now this slurry will be basically can be divided into two fractions. Okay. we can filtrate it through the filter paper or filter equipment. Okay, and we will be getting two things. We will be getting two different parts. The one will be the filtrate. The one part will be the filtrate. The one fraction will be filtrate, which is called as acid soluble. All the parts of the cell, all the parts of the tissue which are solubilized in the trichloroacetic acid will be present in the filtrate. Filtrate is that part basically which is removed, which is filtered out from the filter paper. Okay, and that is called as acid soluble pool. What will we call them? As an acid soluble pool. Why? Because they are able to solubilize in the trichloroacetic acid. The second part will be called as retentate. Retentant is that part of the slurry which is not going through this filter paper. And we can say it is acid insoluble in nature. These are acid insoluble in nature. As we know that they are not able to pass through the filter paper, it means they are comparatively bigger in size. And hence they are called as macromolecules. So here we have got two fractions out of this slurry. The first one is filtrate, which is acid soluble in nature, and it consists mainly the cytoplasmic composition, mainly consisting the macromolecules. We will discuss what is macromolecule. And the other part which is not able to get filtered out is the retentate, which will be retained back within the filter within this solution, and that will be called as acid insoluble fraction, which will be mainly consisting these macromolecules. So that was about how to analyze the biomolecules or the organic compounds present in the tissue. Now, depending upon the molecular weight and the solubility, we have got two different characteristics. The first one is the molecular weight and the second one is the solubility. The biomolecules can be differentiated into two different types, that is micromolecule and macromolecule, as we have already seen. So micromolecule and macromolecule. Now, as the name itself suggests, for anything to be called as a micro or macro, we have to have a standard size. So all the molecules which are present in the tissue, which has got molecular weight less than 1000 daltons. Daltons is a unit which is used for determining the weight in the case of hydrocarbons, particularly in the case of hydrocarbons, or we can say biomolecules. So 1 dalton is equal to 1 mu, we can consider. 1 dalton is equal to the mass of the 1 hydrogen. We can consider right now this. Okay, Dalton was a scientist. So when all the molecules which have got the molecular weight, you know the molecular weight. What is the molecular weight? Molecular weight is the total sum of the mass of elements present in a particular molecule. Suppose H2O. So H2O is a molecule. So H2, what will the molecular weight of H2O? It will be hydrogen into 2, yani 1, 2 and 16. It means 18 mu. So right. So similarly, whatever the molecules which will be having the molecular weight lesser than the 1000 daltons will be considered as a micromolecule. So the molecules, you have to note it down. The molecules having the molecular weight less than 1000 dalton is called as micromolecule. And the macromolecules are the one which has got molecular weight higher than 1000 daltons. The macromolecules are the one which has got the molecular weight higher than 1000 daltons. This is something which is important. Next, these macromolecules will present in acid soluble pool. It means they will be getting filtrated and they will be present in the filtrate. Because we have already seen that. While the macromolecules are not able to get filtrated out, and hence they will be present in the retentate. They will present the retentate fraction of the slurry. And they are acid insoluble. In nature. Are you getting it? So they are present in acid insoluble in nature. And they are acid soluble in nature. Okay. Examples of macromolecules are amino acids, nitrogen bases, monosaccharides, lipids. All of these will be studied one by one in this particular chapter. And the macromolecules are again the bigger one, like proteins, nucleic acids, polysaccharides and all that. Okay, so we'll be studying them as well in detail one by one. Okay, so that was about the micromolecules and the macromolecules. Again, let us find out what are macromolecules. They are small size. How small size they are? Less than 1000 daltons. Okay. Low molecular weight. How much low? Less than 1000 dalton. Simple molecular structure, as they are basically acid soluble, they will not be having high complicated structure. They will be formed of simple structure, primary structure only. Highly soluble in intracellular fluid matrix. They are mainly soluble in the intracellular fluid matrix. It means that they are present in the cytoplasmic fluid particularly. Example: water, minerals, gases, carbohydrates, lipids, amino acids. And now one thing has to be kept in mind: these lipids, although it is considered as a micromolecule, but still they will be considered as a macromolecule. It's a type of exception. Why lipids? Here we are saying it's a micromolecule because the total mass, molecular weight of the lipids will be 800 daltons. but it would be still considered as a, so you don't have to write this lipids over here. It is a sort of exception. It is type of, so lipids will be basically considered as a macromolecule rather than micromolecule. On the basis of its molecular weight, it can be considered macromolecule, but still its functioning will be like macromolecule. So the other one is macromolecules, again having large size, comparatively having more higher molecular weight, that is more than 1000 Daltons, right? Comparatively, the structure will be complex. Okay, and having low solubility in the intracellular fluid matrix. They will not be solubilized in the cellular matrix because of their size particularly, and again nature. Now generally formed by the polymerization. What happens? They are mainly, how they are formed? So they are formed by polymerization. See, this is my macromolecule. This is my macromolecule. This is my macromolecule. So when these macromolecules will be connected together, what will make? They'll make a chain, and this chain is called as polymer. This chain is called as polymer. Okay. So normally these macromolecules are also made up of micromolecules. So they are made up of polymerization of macromolecules. This is something which you have to keep in mind. Okay. They are made up of polymerization of macromolecules. Okay. So next is, over here we have seen the lipids. So the lipids have molecular mass similar to that of macromolecule, that is less than 800. So although it is having mass similar to the macromolecule, that is around 800 Daltons, but still they do not appear in the acid soluble pool. So as you have seen that the solubility of the macromolecule is in the acids, so they are acid soluble, but the fat is not found to be the acid soluble in nature. Why? Because of its, first of all, its structure, and other one is they are non-polar in nature. The acid soluble components are mainly polar. Polar you are already knowing, which have got two poles, positive and negative charge, right? So, or we can say they have got any OH as a functional group. But here the fatty acids are non-polar in nature. They are non-polar in nature. They will not basically dissolve in the polar substances like the trichloroacetic acid, and hence they will be present as a part of the acid soluble pool, acid insoluble pool. So although having a less weight than the macromolecules, still the lipid will be considered as a macromolecule because it is part of it is a part of acid insoluble fraction. Okay. And one more thing, this lipid is, you have to keep it down, you have to note it down. Lipid is only macromolecule which is not a polymer. Write it down, it's important. So lipid is only molecule which is not a polymer, it may be asked in the question, it can be asked in the question. So lipid is only the molecule which is not a polymer, okay. So that was about the macromolecule and the macromolecule. I hope the things are clear with you. Examples of macromolecules: carbohydrates, sugars like the starch, glycogen, proteins, nucleic acids, etc. Okay. So now let us start the metabolites. Now we already know that metabolism is all the chemical reactions which are taking place inside the body. And when this chemical reaction is taking place, the different substances are involved in this chemical reaction. These different substances are involved in a chemical reaction, maybe in the form of product, maybe in the form of reactant, or maybe in the form of intermediate substances, And all these substances which are taking part in metabolism, either as a form of reactant, as a form of product, or as the intermediate substances, are called as metabolites. So you can write it down. So all the substances which are taking part in a biochemical reaction, either it may be in the form of reactant, it may be in the form of product, or in the form of intermediate substances, are called as metabolite. Okay. Now these metabolites can be of two types. Okay. Now something you have to keep in mind, that what is, you got to know what is metabolite. So there are two types, that is primary and secondary. Now for every organism, you have to just keep in mind, for every organism there are some substances which are so crucial for the survival. There are some substances which are so crucial for their survival. It means without which they will not be able to survive for a longer period of time. They will not be able to survive, or they will not be able to carry out the important function of their life. Okay. Such type of substances are called as primary metabolites. So they are the primary requirement. So what are these primary metabolites? They are substances which are important for the functional and the function of organism and the survival of organism, and they are called as primary metabolites. Okay. So we can say these are the biomolecules required for the basic metabolic processes. Okay, these are the biomolecules which are required for the basic metabolic processes. Okay. Second point is they are produced in generous quantities because they are the one which is responsible for the survival of organism. They will be present in organism. It will be found in higher amount. They will be present in the higher amount, or we can say in the generous quantities, right? And can easily be extracted from the plant or organism. It can be easily extracted from plant or organism. Now these are over here we are basically studying it in the context of plant particularly. So these are found throughout the plant kingdom or throughout the organism. Like all the organisms of that kingdom will be having this metabolites. It means that all the organisms will be having these metabolites, right from the smaller one to bigger one. Bacteria will be also having these metabolites. The algae will be also having it. Fungi will be having it, and even the human beings will be also having the same type of metabolites. Having different forms, but will be present over there, and otherwise these are the part of the basic molecular structure of a cell. So without this, the cell formation will not be possible, right? So like lipids, without lipids the cell will not be able to form. Like proteins, without proteins the cell will not be able to form. Okay, so these are the basic requirement for the formation of the cell as well, and for the functioning of a cell. They are highly useful to plant. They are very important to organism, particularly for the survival. They are found from the start of a plant. Yeah, these are the type of substances which are present in the body, present in organism right from beginning of its life, from the beginning of life. So when the formation of that particular body organism is occurring, it will present in the body. It will not be generated through just different phases of life, right? So what are primary metabolites? They are first one, the very important molecules required for the survival and the functioning of a cell, of a body, organism, right? Second, they are present in very generous quantity. Third, they will be present throughout the life, right from beginning to the end. Fourth, they are present throughout the organisms. It may be of different kind of organism, but still they will be all present. Fifth, it will be responsible for the structure of cell. It will be responsible for the formation of structure of cell. And last one, that is, they are very useful to this organism. They are very useful for the particular organism. Without this primary metabolite, the organisms will not be able to survive. Without this primary metabolite, the organism will not be able to survive. Okay. Now the secondary metabolites. So as we have seen, we will be getting a bit of information, like we will be also guessing what secondary metabolites are. You will be knowing it. How the primary metabolites are so important, so secondary metabolites are not that much important, so they can survive. So suppose I am having a person is having his life, so what will be the fundamental requirement for living? It will be the living food, shelter and clothes. So food will be the primary requirement, water will be the primary requirement, and shelter will be the primary requirement. So this food, water and this shelter is basically his primary requirement, that can be considered as a primary metabolite. Okay, but suppose if the person is possessing a car, the person is possessing a mobile laptop, so it is not responsible for survival. Without this also the person will be able to survive. Okay, so that mobile, car and all this will be considered as a secondary metabolite. What will be considered? It will be considered as a secondary metabolite. Okay, because it is, without this even the organism will be able to survive, the person will be able to survive. Okay, so here just contrasting to primary metabolite, it will be the derivatives of primary metabolites which are not involved in the blast. Blast means to formation, for the formation. Okay, so they are not present from the very beginning of life. These are produced in small quantities and their extraction from the plant is difficult. So the secondary metabolites are comparatively less in quantity and their extraction is not that easy as compared to the primary metabolite. Particular secondary metabolites are found in one plant species or families and not all. So the different type of plants, different type of organisms will be producing different type of secondary metabolite. They will not be similar as in the case of primary metabolites. Like primary metabolites were similar in nature in all the plants, but over here it will not be similar, right? And these are not a part of basic molecular structure of the cell. So they do not form any particular structural component of the cell, and hence without them even the plant can survive. They have a limited role in plant. Like I've told you, they do not play a very important role in life of a plant or any organism. So without that also the organism will be able to survive. They are found at a particular stage of development. So they will not be present throughout the life. They will be present at some mostly after the maturation. They will be produced. Okay. So that was about the primary metabolite and the secondary metabolite. Let us see some examples of secondary metabolites. Primary metabolites example, first of all I will say carbohydrates, proteins, all these enzymes, all these lipids, all these are basically my primary metabolites which are so important for the organism. Okay, while the secondary metabolites example, in the case of plants, some pigments like carotenoids, anthocyanins, these are the pigments which are responsible for giving the color to the flower and the color to the fruits and all that, right? Alkaloids like morphine and codeine which are used as the drugs as well. So these are the type of alkaloid substances. Terpenoids and essential oils like lemongrass, you would have seen lemongrass. It is responsible. It is having different type of characteristic used in different medicination as well. Okay, and toxins, like some organisms, some plants will be also producing them. Like castor will be producing rixin, a toxin which can be deadly for, which is poisonous in nature. Lectins, example, concubine A, drugs like vinblastine, curcumin, etc. These are the different type of drugs, or we can say medicines produced from the body. Okay, and produced from the organism. And polymeric substances like rubber, gum, cellulose, and these all are the substances which are produced by the plant but not used by the plant so much, and hence they are called as secondary metabolites, and they are not required for the survival of the plant. Without that also the plant will be able to survive. And these are the substances which will produce after a particular period. Like suppose let us say gums. So these gums which are produced on the plant will be not produced right from beginning. It will, when a plant is very small, it will not produce the gum, but it will produce the starch, it will produce the proteins. So the proteins or starch is the primary metabolite, while the gum is or rubber is the secondary metabolite, which will produce after a particular age. Okay, so that was about the primary and secondary metabolite. Now let us start the macromolecules and micromolecules. So first of all, we'll start some important primary metabolite, that is the carbohydrate. First we will start with the carbohydrate. Okay, name itself suggests it contains mainly, over here spelling is a bit wrong. So it would be carbohydrate, HYDRATE, yes. So carbohydrate name suggests it will be consisting of mainly carbon and hydrates consisting H and O. Okay, so they will be consisting CHO most of the time. Sometimes it may be present that some of them is missing, like H is missing or O is missing, but carbon will be always present. But mostly they will be consisting, the CHO will be present over there. Okay, now they are also known as saccharides. Or we can say sugar, because they are sweet smell, they are sweet in nature, sweet in taste. Okay, but not all the carbohydrates will be sugar. Not all the carbohydrates will be sugar. Okay, now how these carbohydrates are formed? These carbohydrates are formed by the green plant. So you have to keep in mind the green plants are only the source of the carbohydrates. They are the first primary source of carbohydrates. So how these green plants will form these carbohydrates? They will form the glucose by synthesis. How about photosynthesis? The photosynthesis is responsible for formation of glucose, and this glucose will be then converted into different type of carbohydrates which are basically used by different animals as well. So the source of formation of carbohydrates is basically the glucose, the primary source, right? The plant. So 80% of the dry weight of plants. So mainly the plant will be consisting around whatever the dry weight. You have to note it down. It's the dry weight of the plant. So the 80% of the dry weight of the plant will be basically made up of carbohydrate, responsible due to carbohydrate. Okay. Next is monosaccharides. So what is monosaccharides? So carbohydrates will be of different types. Saccharides, I told you the carbohydrates are also called as saccharides. Now depending on the number of saccharides, the carbohydrates can be of different type. That can be monosaccharides, disaccharides, trisaccharides, and all that. Okay. So we will start with the monosaccharides. So what are monosaccharides? A single saccharide unit. It is a single saccharide unit with CnH2nOn general formula. So here you have to keep in mind the CnH2n. It should be like this, CnH2nOn. Okay. So this is something like this. Okay. So this CnH2nOn is the general formula of the monosaccharides. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is monosaccharides cannot be hydrolyzed. They cannot be hydrolyzed further. If they are hydrolyzed, they will not be considered as saccharide then. They will not be considered as saccharide then. Okay. So it may be consisting of 3 carbon to 7 carbon. The minimum number of carbon which are present in monosaccharide will be 3 carbon, and the maximum number what is found particularly is basically 7 carbons. Okay. So it will be depending on the number of carbon. Depending on number of carbon, the monosaccharide can be called as triose, tetroses, pentose, hexose, and haptose. Trioses will be consisting 3 carbon, tetrose 4, pentose 5, hexose 6, and haptose 7. Now, these monosaccharides are the important as energy sources and the building blocks. So, as I just told you, most of the plant will form the carbohydrates, and this will be produced by the process of photosynthesis. And this carbohydrate which is produced by the process of photosynthesis will be taken up by the different organisms directly or indirectly, and hence they will be getting the energy, they will be obtaining the energy. So these are the main primary source of energy for all the organisms, maybe directly or maybe indirectly. So these are the primary source of energy for all the organisms, maybe directly or indirectly. They are also responsible for forming the building blocks. We will be further studying the different type of structures like cellulose, like starch, mainly cellulose. Okay, so these are the different structures which are formed by again utilizing these monosaccharides. This is by utilizing the monosaccharide, like the glucose will be utilized for the formation of cellulose. So when we see a plant, the whole plant body is basically made up of cellulose. The cellulose is basically synthesized by the polymerization of the glucose. So they are also responsible for the formation of a big molecules like the cellulose, okay, and which will be responsible for forming the whole body. Next is these carbohydrates can be aldoses or ketoses. This is something which is important. Aldoses or ketoses. What does it mean? It can have aldehyde group, or it can have aldehyde group, or it can have ketosis group. So we already know what are aldehyde and what are ketose, right? So it can have aldehyde group, that is CHO, or ketone, that is C double bond O. So these are the functional group which are always present in this monosaccharides, in the carbohydrates, right? So there is a functional group which will be always present in the monosaccharides. Okay, this is something which you have to keep in mind. This is aldoses and the ketoses. They are always aldoses or ketoses. Simplest monosaccharides include trioses. The simplest form of monosaccharide will be consisting 3 carbon, that is a trioses. Example, glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone. Glyceraldehyde will be having 3 carbon, out of which one will be CHO. Okay, glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone. These are two different type of saccharides. Glyceraldehyde is a type of aldose. It's type of aldose. As we can know that it has got aldehyde. It means that it will be having this aldehyde functional group, and hence it is called as aldoses. While the dihydroxyacetone, as we know that it will be having ketone functional group, so it will be ketose. Both will be having 3 carbon. As you know that this is the simplest form of monosaccharide which can occur. If it is asked what is the simplest form of aldoses, so it will be glyceraldehyde. What is the simplest form of ketoses? It will be the dihydroxyacetone. Okay, now after trioses we will be having the tetroses. Example, erythrose, and these are very rare type of saccharides which are not formally found everywhere. Like this, it's a hexose is the one which is most common. Okay, we will study them as well. So you take part in the synthesis of lignin, and even the lignin is a specific type of tissue. Okay, so not tissue. Lignin is basically it's a specific type of part which is responsible for formation of the mechanical tissue in the plants, right? Sclerochemical tissues, and it is also responsible for formation of anthocyanin pigments which are responsible for coloring the flowers and fruits and all that. Now the saccharides containing the 5 carbon, the saccharides which contain the 5 carbon are called as pentoses. Example, ribose, ribulose, xylulose, arabinose. Xylulose and arabinose polymerize to form xylans and arabins, which are the soluble material. So we will study again. These are the part of the pectin and hemicellulose. They are responsible for formation of soluble as well. So these are the pentoses. Ribose, we will be discussing them as well with the figures also. Hexose are the most abundant, most common type of saccharide. Hexoses are the most abundant and most common type of saccharides, which will consisting the glucose will be containing 6 carbon, fructose containing 6 carbon, mannose, galactose, all are the carbons which are having 6 carbons. All are the saccharides which are having 6 carbon. They are white, properly clear, crystal clear white, and they will be sweet testing in nature. They will be sweet testing and hence called as sugars. Extremely soluble in water. They will be easily able to get solubilized in water because they are polar in nature. Glucose is called as universal sugar and is also known as dextrose or grape sugar or corn sugar. These are the common name of the sugar, that is glucose, that is a dextrose, grape sugar or corn sugar. Okay, so here we can see the structure. Here we can see the structure. Here we can see the structure. So this is the glucose. So glucose are present in two forms. This is form 1 and this is form 2. This is open chain. This is my open chain. This is my ring form. Let us discuss the open chain first. So it is a hexose type of sugar. It's a type of hexose. So hexose means it will be having 6 carbons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it has got 6 carbon. Now we also know that it's a type of, it can be aldose or it can be hexose. Sorry, it can be aldose or it can be ketose. So aldose, it will be having aldehyde group. Ketose, it will be having ketone group. So what type of group we can find here? So we can see it has got CHO group. It has got CHO group, which is nothing but aldehyde group, right? So it's a type of aldose. It's a type of aldose. So this carbon which is having the CHO group is called as first carbon. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So first carbon will be having CHO group, and later on all this carbon will be having hydroxyl group and one hydrogen attached to it, hydroxyl group. And this orientation of hydrogen and OH is also important. This orientation of OH and H has to be proper, otherwise it becomes another compound, it becomes another type of isomer which may have different other properties and uses. Okay, so you should be always careful when you are basically drawing the structure. You have to make sure that you keep this orientation of hydroxyl properly. Okay, so the first carbon will be CHO, that will be functional group is aldehyde, and this is aldose. Now it will be forming this functional carbon will be basically forming a bond with this carbon. Will be forming this bond with this carbon, fifth carbon, right? And hence it will form a ring structure. So here we can see the ring structure where the first carbon has got bounded with the fifth carbon with the help of this oxygen. Okay, with the help of this oxygen. So it will be forming a cyclic structure. It is called a cyclic structure. We can say ring form. It will be called a ring form. This type of ring structure is called as pyranose ring structure. This type of ring structure is called as pyranose ring structure. You have to keep in mind. I will again tell you. This type of ring structure called as pyranose ring structure. So over here, the number of carbons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the sixth carbon is basically out of this ring. Sixth carbon will be out of the ring. Okay, over you can see. So because the bond is formed between the fifth and first. The bond is formed between the fifth and the first carbon. Okay, so this is something this is about the structure of the glucose, that is hexose sugar. Similarly, let us see the ribose. As we see that ribose was having 5 carbons. Ribose was having, it's a type of pentose. It's a type of pentose. Again, aldehyde sugar. It means it will be having CHO group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here this 5 in which the first carbon and this fourth carbon. The first carbon will be bounded with 4 carbon with the help of by having this oxygen in between, and then it will form a ring-like structure. Now you can compare. Both the rings are quite different. This is a hexagonal ring. This is forming a hexagonal ring. This is forming a pentagonal ring. This is forming a pentagonal ring. This hexagonal ring structure is called as pyranose. It's called as pyranose ring structure. What we call it as PYRANOS, pyranose ring structure. While here we can call it a furanose, furanose ring structure, furan ring structure, right? So this is the ribose, that is the pentose sugar, that is the pentose sugar. Okay, so that was about the ribose and hexose, ribose and glucose. This the first one was the aldose. Both are aldoses, but the first one is hexose and the second one is pentose. Now let us see. After aldose, let us see ketose sugar. Let us see that ketose. So ketose, again 6 carbon are present. Again 6 carbon are present. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's a hexose sugar. Now here we can see what type of functional group is present. So here the functional group which is present is the ketone, that is C double bond O group. And apart from this, all will be having hydroxyl OH and H group present on them. And they'll form a open structure. They'll form an open lactose. It's called as fructose. L-fructose. L means it will be levorotatory fructose. It means whenever a plane polarized light is passed through it. You will be studying in stereochemistry. You will study that in the stereochemistry in your chemistry lecture particularly. So what is L-fructose? It's a type of levorotatory. Matlab means whenever the plane polarized light is passed through it, it will it will change the position. It will divert this plane towards the left. It will turn the plane to left, and hence called levorotatory. And deoxyribose, again it is a ribose. It will find 5. So here you can basically see deoxyribose. Okay, I feel it is something wrong over here. It is not deoxyribose, it is oxyribose. It is ribose only. Okay, it is a bit wrong structure, I think, over here. So it should be this oxygen should be removed out. This oxygen should be removed out from here. Okay, so this is pentose and this is my hexose. This is my ketose. This is my aldoses. Okay, so that was about this. Next is fructose, as we have seen. Fructose is known also called as levulose, also called as levulose. Fructose also called as levulose. It is sweetest sugar. Keep in mind. Fructose is called as sweetest sugar found naturally. Sweetest sugar found naturally. Sweetest sugar found naturally. It is also found in honey as well, and hence honey is considered to be one of the most sweetest thing. Okay, which will become these two things, that dextrose and levulose. Dextrose, as you know that what is it? It is a glucose, and the levulose. Okay, it is fructose. So fructose is again also called fruit sugar. It's also called as fruit sugar. And because mainly in the fruits it is also found. Mainly fruits have got this fructose. Okay. Next is haptose. Haptose will be consisting of 7 carbon. They are also very rarely found. Example pseudohaptulose. Example pseudohaptulose C7H14O7. This is the novel CnH2nON. As you have seen, right? So it is following that general formula CnH2nON. Okay. And okay, next we have seen the two type of rings, that is pyranose ring. This is my pyranose ring. This is my pyranose ring, right? Having this hexagonal structure, having this hexagon, and this is my furanose ring. This is my furanose ring. Okay. So mostly the pentose sugar will be forming the furanose ring. The pentose sugar will be forming the furanose ring. Here the pentagonal shape with 4 carbon atoms and 1 oxygen atom, right? While the pyranose ring having 5 carbon atoms and 1 oxygen atom and will be hexagonal shape. So you can see pyranose. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon atom and 1 oxygen atom, and furanose 1, 2, 3, 4 carbon atom, 1 oxygen atom, and will form a ring-like structure. Pyranose and furanose. Mostly the pentoses will be forming the furanose, while the hexoses will be forming the pyranose structure. Okay, that was about the structures. Okay, and doubt regarding this up to this, I hope it is not there. So let us move ahead. Now the reducing sugar. Now reducing sugar, you will be knowing what is reduction and what is oxidation. So reduction is basically whenever any substance releases electron. Any substances when substances releases electron and itself get oxidized, it's called as reducing. Okay, so these are the cells, these are the sugars will be reduced by themselves. They will reduce. How will they reduce? They will reduce by giving someone electrons. They will reduce other organisms. They will reduce other chemical substances. Okay, they will reduce other chemicals. Okay, so what happens? The ketone group or the aldehyde group present in this sugar, the ketone group or the aldehyde group, when they are present in free form, it means they will not be bounded with others. So what will they do? They will reduce this carbon. They will reduce this copper 2 plus ion into copper plus ion, cupric ion, right? So this 2 plus is got converted into 1 plus. It means it has obtained electron. It means this copper is reduced. How is it getting reduced? Because of some reducing agent. And what is this reducing agent? This is the sugar. So when this sugar is behaving as a reducing agent, it is called as reducing sugar. And itself it will go oxidized. It was not what I said, right? So they will get oxidized. So they will release electron. When is it possible? When this ketone group or the aldehyde group are free. So whenever these sugars are able to give electrons and reduces another substance like copper, they are called as reducing sugars. Okay, but when it is possible, it is only possible when this ketone group or aldehyde group is free. Keep in mind, whenever this aldehyde and ketone group is free, it is called as reducing sugar. How we can come to know whether the sugars is reducing or not? And this is the reason we conduct a Benedict's test, or we can say Fehling's test. Benedict's and Fehling's test are the tests used for this determining the presence of aldehyde and ketones. You will learn this test in chemistry also, organic chemistry mostly. Okay, so here these are the tests which are used for determining whether any oxidizing agent is present or not. So this test is also used to determine whether there is presence of glucose in urine or not. For some patient diagnostic test, it is used as whether the urine is consisting the amount of glucose or not. Okay, and other one, these sugars will be forming the glycosidic bond. What is glycosidic bond? So glycosidic bond is, let me tell you what is glycosidic bond. So this sugar will be having functional group CHO, suppose. Okay, now this oxygen will be reacting with hydroxyl. So this carbon of sugar, this carbon of one monosaccharide will be reacting with hydroxyl group of another molecule, will be forming this bond. This bond is called as glycosidic bond. This bond is called as glycosidic bond, right? So what is glycosidic bond? It's a bond formed between, write down, it's a bond formed between the functional group carbon of glucose, or we can say functional group carbon of any saccharide, with the alcoholic group, of other molecule. It may be saccharide, it may be anything else. So with the alcoholic group of other molecule, we'll be writing that, we'll be seeing that. Okay, let me tell you. Okay, it's there, it will be coming ahead. So what are the glycosidic bonds? The bond which is formed in the functional group carbon and the alcoholic carbon of two molecules. Okay, so it is the glycosidic bond. Now differences between reducing and non-reducing. The reducing have free aldehyde CHO or ketone group, as I told you. Non-reducing will be not having free aldehyde or ketone group. Keep in mind, non-reducing sugars will be having aldehyde and ketone, but they will not be free. It means they will be bonded with someone. Okay, with some other particles, with some other molecules. The sugars can reduce cupric ions to benedict or to cuprous ions, to Cu2 plus to Cu plus, and they do not reduce cupric ion to benedict or the filling solution to cuprous ion. Okay? This is something what we have already seen. Now derived monosaccharides. These monosaccharides can also be derived into different forms. That is deoxy sugar. As I told you, suppose the sugar was having, there is sugar, this is my ribose. This is normally ribose. This is ribose which is having OH group over here. So what I do? This oxygen is removed. Let us say this oxygen is removed. Now this is dehydroxy. What is it? Deoxy. So when this oxygen removed, it is now becoming deoxy. And this type of sugar is found in DNA. This type of sugar is found in DNA. What does it stand for? Deoxyribonucleic acid. So deoxyribose. So this is my ribose sugar, and when oxygen is removed, it is called as deoxy. Okay, so this is type of derived monosaccharide. This is deoxyribose nucleic sugar. Okay. Next is, okay, just a minute. Next, amino sugar. Amino sugar name itself suggests that it will be having amino group present in it. Example, glucosamine, galactosamine. Write down. Example, glucosamine, and galactosamine. Next is sugar acid. It means this aldehyde of any of the substance, any of the saccharide will be having OH group, COOH group, that is acidic group, carboxylic acid group. Such type of saccharide will be called as sugar acid. Example, aspartic acid. Example, the vitamin C, what we say, that is the aspartic acid, or we can say glucuronic acid, or we can say glucuric acid, or we can say galactonic acid. There are different type of sugar acids. Okay. Next is sugar alcohol. When this sugar will be having alcohol group attached with it, okay, this is my sugar, this will be having alcoholic group attached with it. It is called as sugary alcohol. Example, write down mannitol. Mannitol is a reserve food material in some specific type of fungi. So deoxy sugar in DNA, amino sugar, galactosamine, glucosamine, mainly found in the cell wall of bacteria. Okay, sugar acids like aspartic acid and ascorbic acid and glutamic acid and glucuric acid, right? Example, vitamin C. And sugar alcohol like mannitol. Okay, these are the different type of derived monosaccharides. Okay. Next is disaccharides. So till now we have seen the monosaccharide which was consisting a single unit of saccharides. Okay. Next is disaccharides. So when a single unit of saccharide is condensed, or it is getting condensed with other saccharide. This is my saccharide 1, this is my saccharide 2. When they both get connected by forming a glycosidic bond. I have just told you what is the glycosidic bond. When they form a glycosidic bond, the glycosidic bond will be formed between the first carbon and the fourth carbon. First carbon of this and fourth carbon of this. We'll see. I will just show you how this is formed. Okay. So disaccharide, what are disaccharide? Disaccharide condensation of two monosaccharides. Okay. Usually it is hexose. and then it form a disaccharide. How does this form? By forming a bond between the first carbon of one molecule and the second carbon of a second molecule, right? The fourth carbon of second molecule forms a glycosidic bond. Example, sucrose. Sucrose consisting of two parts, that is glucose plus fructose, while lactose consists glucose plus galactose. Galactose is also a type of monosaccharide. Okay, so let us see. Let me tell you first of all, then we will discuss the differences. Okay, so here these are the different type of disaccharides. So let us see. This is the disaccharide where this is my molecule 1, that is glucose. This is maltose. Maltose is made up of two monosaccharides, glucose plus glucose, glucose plus glucose, alpha glucose plus alpha glucose, alpha and beta. It's on the basis of orientation of this hydrogen and hydroxyl. It's the basis of orientation of hydroxyl and hydroxyl. Okay, so over here we can say this is my one carbon, this is my one glucose which has got first carbon over here. This is my first carbon. Now this first carbon is basically forming a bond with the another glucose which is fourth carbon. 1, 2, 3, 4. This fourth carbon is forming a bond with the first carbon, and the fourth carbon, the hydroxyl group, OH group of the fourth carbon, note it down, it was the OH before the formation of bond. This OH group of the fourth carbon is forming the bond with the CHO group. With the CHO group, this carbon which is called as anomeric carbon, the carbon which is responsible for functional group is called as anomeric carbon. So the bond formed between this functional group and this hydroxyl is called as alpha glycosidic bond. It's called as glycosidic bond, and this glycosidic bond is formed between two carbons, that is a carbon 1 over here and carbon 4 over here. Hence it is called as alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage. Alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage. This is something which you have to know. So what is glycosidic bond? Glycosidic bond is formed between the anomeric carbon, or the functional group carbon, with the OH, that is hydroxyl group. Okay, and this is called as glycosidic linkage. Okay, and when it is formed with the 1 and 4, it's called 1,4 glycosidic linkage. It will be consisting two monosaccharides, hence it is called as disaccharides. Okay. Similarly, here we can see the lactose presents glucose plus galactose. Lactose. This is again wrong. It should be galactose. It should be galactose. Glucose plus galactose. Okay. So that was galactose. Glucose plus galactose will be the lactose. Okay. Lactose is milk sugar. Okay, next is the sucrose. Sucrose is one basically which is a sugar, table sugar, what we eat, C12H22O11. So this is formed by the two parts, that is glucose plus fructose. Glucose is pyranose and fructose is furanose, right? So glucose plus fructose. This is the sucrose that is called a table sugar. Okay, so make sure lactose is called as milk sugar, which is present in the milk particularly, and the sucrose is the table sugar which is found in the normal sugar we eat at our home. So that was about the disaccharide. Disaccharide means will be consisting of two monosaccharide units bound together by alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond. What is glycosidic bond? Bond between the anomeric carbon or functional group carbon with the hydroxyl group or OH group. Okay, and next the difference between oligosaccharide and polysaccharides. So oligosaccharides are the saccharides which consist of 2 to 9 monosaccharides. 2 to 9 monosaccharides. They are sweet in taste. Right now, they are sweet in taste. They'll be containing 2 to 9. Their sweet in taste. Compared to the size is small. They are soluble in water. Okay. So here they contain 2 to 9 monosaccharides. Oligosaccharides are soluble in water. Commonly sweet in taste. And transport of carbohydrate occurs in oligosaccharides. Most of the time, this glucose or whatever the carbohydrate being transported from one plant to other. Like suppose the glucose is being synthesized in the plant leaf. It is synthesized in the plant leaf, but it has to be transported to the roots. So this transportation will be occurring in the form of disaccharides, mainly the sucrose. Something has to be noted down. So they are transported in the form of mainly the disaccharides. And storage in oligosaccharide state is less. So keep in mind, synthesis is taking place in the monosaccharide stage. Okay, synthesis taking place in monosaccharide stage. Transportation taking place in the disaccharide stage or oligosaccharide stage, and storage is taking place in the polysaccharide stage. They form a component of external surfaces of plasma membrane and cell coat. They are also responsible for formation of some recognition molecules. We will be studying that. You would have seen antigen. You would have heard antigen, right? So the antigens are basically nothing but the type of polysaccharides. They are also oligosaccharides. Okay. Polysaccharides possess a large number of monosaccharides. Simple, more than 100, 200,000 can also be there. Polysaccharides are usually insoluble in water. Because of their high size and non-polar nature, they will be insoluble in water. Their sweetness is absent. So when you basically eat a sugar, it is monodisaccharide, you can feel taste sweeter. But when you eat a cellulose, you don't feel taste sweeter. Polysaccharides are not involved in transport. They are responsible for the storage particularly. They are not involved in the transport, only they are responsible for the storage. They form the component of cell wall. They form the component of cell wall. Example, starch, glucose and cellulose. Okay, so this is about the disaccharides. Now trisaccharide, by the name itself, you can say when 3 monosaccharides are condensed together. Then if 3 monosaccharides are condensed together, they are called as trisaccharide. Example, raffinose, glucose, fructose plus galactose. Mainly responsible for cell recognition. When we say that cell has got some receptors present on the plasma membrane, or we can say they have got some specific type of molecules which are called as antigens. So these antigens are the molecules by which the cell will be recognizing whether the given cell is a self or foreign particle. If it is self cell, it will be protected by the immune system. But if it is suppose a foreign particle, then it will be basically killed by the immune system. So how this killing has to be decided, whether it has to be killed or not, it is decided by recognizing it. So how it will be recognized? It will be recognized by some specific molecule present on the plasma membrane of cell. It will be recognized by specific molecules present on this plasma membrane of cell, and these specific molecules are called as antigens. What are called as antigens? And these antigens are basically made up of oligosaccharides. Mainly the trisaccharides. Okay, so example we have already seen, that is sugar alcohol. Okay, example over here, raffinose, maltose, sucrose, not sucrose, maltose. Okay, this is example. Okay, so these are mainly responsible for the antigen specificity. Mainly the mannose, you can write down over here, antigen specific. Example, mainly mannose, erythrose, these are the one responsible for antigen specificity. That is the monosaccharide, disaccharide, oligosaccharides are done. Now the last one is the polysaccharides. The name itself suggests it will be consisting the polymer. It will be consisting the polymer of the saccharides. It will be consisting large chain of monosaccharides. It consists of large chain of monosaccharides, and they can be branched or they can be unbranched. Okay, and they are insoluble in water. They are not easily soluble in water. Okay, you cannot solubilize them in water. They are considered to be non-sugars because they are not sweet in taste. So two things has to be kept in mind. They are non-sweet in taste, they are insoluble in water. Okay, and they are very large in length. Okay, example, starch, glycogen, cellulose, pectin, hemicellulose, inulin, etc. What are the advantages? They are easy to store. Why are they easy to store? Because they are highly condensed. So why they are condensed? Because they will be releasing out the water during their synthesis. What will happen? They will be releasing out water, and hence they will be getting condensed, and they will be acquiring very low space, and hence in a small space they will be stored in a higher amount because of condensation, and hence they are easy to store. So they are high molecular weight, cannot pass through the plasma membrane. As because they are having high size, they are also having high molecular weight. They are not easily passed out through the plasma membrane as the normal small molecules may do. Okay, so they are easy to store, more condensed and high molecular weight, which cannot pass through the plasma membrane. Now they can be of two types: homopolysaccharides or heteropolysaccharides. They can be of two types, that is homopolysaccharides or hetero. The name itself suggests homo means the one which will be having same type of saccharide unit. They will be having the same type of saccharide unit. Example, starch. The starch will be made up of only glucose. Glycogen will be only made up of glucose. Cellulose is only made up of beta glucose. Okay? So all these are basically made up of same type of cell. All these are made up of same type of cell. Example, so suppose I'm having a garland which is basically made up of made up of same type of flowers. All are same. So this is called as my homopolysaccharides. All are made up of same. They do not have any difference between them. It is called as homopolysaccharide. While suppose I am having other different type of saccharide. So here second one is other different. These are different variety of saccharides are present. These are called as heteropolysaccharides. So what are heteropolysaccharides? The polysaccharides which will be consisting of multiple type of saccharides repeating alternatively, mostly alternatively. Example, chitin, agar, etc. They are also responsible for, apart from storage, they can be responsible for basically structure on the basis of the function. This was on the basis of the units, on the basis of the units, type of units. Okay, it was homopolysaccharide or heteropolysaccharide. Now on the basis of the function what they carry out, they can be of three types mainly: storage, they are responsible for storage of food material, they are responsible for formation structure, and also they are sometimes found as a mucopolysaccharide, as a mucus. They are also found as a mucopolysaccharides. First of all, let us see the storage polysaccharides, which are responsible for storing the food material. Example: starch. The starch is the most abundantly found food material. Write it down. This is the starch is the most abundantly found carbohydrate. Starch is the most abundantly found food material in plants, mainly found in the plants. Keep in mind, the starch is the food material storage found in the plant. Is the type of storage of starch. Is this type of storage of carbohydrate in the case of plant only. In the case of plant only. This is in the case of plant. This is in the case of plant, right? Okay, when this is formed during the formation will be basically, what will it form? It will form the glucose. It will be transporting this formation will take place of glucose, and transportation will be occurring in the form of oligosaccharide, and the storage will be taking place in the form of polysaccharides, right? Next, the glycogen. Glycogen is found in the mammals mainly. Glycogens are found in the mammals. Glycogen is found in the mammals for the storage. Storing carbohydrates is an advantage. Why? Because many molecules of water are removed during the synthesis, due to which it will be basically getting more condensed and acquire lesser space. So what is the main, due to condensation, what will happen? The most of water will be removed out, and this, because of this, the volume will be less, and hence they can acquire low space. In a small space, they can be stored in very high amount. Okay, this is some most important advantage. The second advantage is, whenever necessary, the polysaccharides can be broken down. Because these polysaccharides are also functioning as an energy molecules, as we know that, right? So whenever that is required, this polysaccharide can be broken down so that the energy can be released. And they are stored mainly in the case of organism. In the case of human beings, it is stored in the liver in the form of glycogen. Now starch, as you've seen, starch is a polymer of alpha D glucose. We will see that alpha D glucose, what is it? How it is formed? It is a major reserve food in plants. Now this starch will be consisting two type of parts, amylose and amylopectin. Let us see what are amylose and amylopectin. So here you can see this one. This is the straight chain. It does not have any branching. Where 1 glucose, 2 glucose, 3 glucose, 4 glucose, 5 glucose, all these glucose are associated with each other. All these glucose are bonded with each other by forming a glycosidic bond. This is the glycosidic form between glucose 1 between glucose 2. So this glycosidic bond is present between first carbon and fourth carbon, and hence is called as 1,4 linkage, 1,4 glycosidic linkage, and it does not have any type of branching. And hence it is called as unbranched. So this is amylose. Amylose will be unbranched. It will not have a branching. Which type of linkage it will be having? 1,4 linkage. The other one is amylopectin. Now amylopectin you can see. Amylopectin you can see it is having branch. So this is my straight compound, and along with this we have got one more branch. This branch is basically present, and it is called as branched polysaccharide. What we can call that is a branched polysaccharide. Amylopectin has got branch, amylose does not have got branch. Now in this straight chain, what is having? We are having 1,4 linkage. So keep in mind, the amylopectin is having two type of alpha glycosidic bonds. Which one? First one is the alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage, and the second one will be here this is my 6th carbon, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is my first carbon. So this linkage is called as alpha 1,6 linkage. Why? Because it is taking place, it is occurring between this first carbon, this is my first carbon, and this is my 6th carbon. So it is taking place between the 1 and 6 carbon. So it is called as alpha 1,6 linkage. So when we say amylose, the amylose is unbranched. Amylose is unbranched. Over here we have seen amylose is unbranched, having C14 carbon 1,4 linkage and alpha 1,4 linkage, having 200 to 1000 units in a single chain. And this single chain will be forming a helical structure. This single chain will be forming a helical structure like this. It's forming a helical structure where each turn will be having around 6 glucose. Okay, while amylopectin is basically branched
So it will be having both. Keep in mind, it will be having both type of linkage, alpha 1,4 also and also alpha 1,6. It will be having branch. It will be having branch like this. Okay. So that was about the amylopectin, that is starch. Any doubt? Now, whenever this starch is present in the reserve food material, let it be in rice, it is abundantly found in the food material, the reserve food material, in rice, wheat, in potato, so banana and all that. So it is stored in the form of layers. It is stored in the form of layers, which are called as stratification. This is called as stratification. So it will be stored in the form of layer. It will be stored in the form of layer. But this layer is basically surrounding a specific particular tissue, particular protein, and this protein is called as hilum. So the hilum will be responsible. Hilum will form a basic center. Hilum will form a basic central point around which this glucose starch will be getting deposited. Will be getting deposited, forming concentric circles. This is called as hilum, that is proteinaceous in nature, around which this starch will be getting deposited, forming the helical structures and forming concentric rings, mainly found in all the cereals and the grains. Okay, and this starch turns blue with iodine. Whenever basically the I2, this iodine is basically added, the starch turns blue, and this is a test. Iodine test is used to know whether the given compound has got starch or not. So if the starch is present, this iodine will get converted into blue color. If starch is absent, the iodine will not get converted into blue color. So there are many people basically mixed, some sort of adultery is being done with the food substances, like the milk cake, like the mawa, whatever we say, right? It is basically having sometimes the rice flour, rice as well. They will be also having sometimes potato starch. So that can be identified by adding the iodine. If you add iodine, it gets converted into blue. It means that it is having some starch molecule present within them. That's about the starch and its storage. Okay, next is glycogen. So glycogen is equivalent to starch, and it is also the main form of storage in the animals and also in the fungi. It is also storage in the fungi. It turns the iodine into red violet. Rather than blue color, it will be turning the iodine into red violet. So in one glycogen molecule, it will be having 30,000 of glucose units. Compared to the starch, it is much higher. In the case of starch, for around 200 to 1000, it was around 200 to 1000. So we can say starch is not that much condensed. But in the case of glycogen is a highly condensed molecule. Glycogen is a highly condensed type of polysaccharide. Around 30,000 of glucose can be present in a single glycogen, which will be having two type of bonds. Again, it will be having two type of bond. 1,4 bond in the link, and it will be also having branch, and this branch will be very complex. It will be having multiple branches. So it will be having 1 to 6 linkage, and every 10 to 14 glucose units it will be having a single branch. So here you can see there is my linear alpha 1,4 linkage between it will form branch, it will again form branch, it will again form branch. This branch is compound branch. This branch is called as compound branch, right? And hence the glycogen will be having many number of glucose present in a single unit, and it will be highly condensed nature, and it can be stored in a less amount, particularly in the liver. Last one is the inulin. Inulin is a polysaccharide and polymer of fructose. So this is rarely found. You have to keep it in mind, because it is sometimes asking a question and people basically get confused regarding insulin. So insulin is a protein. But inulin is not a protein. It is a type of polysaccharide. Mainly formed by the polymer of fructose. Found in the roots of dahlia. Okay, next is structural polysaccharide, cellulose. That is structural polysaccharide, which is mainly responsible for formation of structural component of the cell or body. So the first one is cellulose. Cellulose is the homopolysaccharide made up of glucose. Around 6,000 glucose residues are present in single cellulose chain. This is the most abundant carbohydrate in biosphere. You have to note it down. It's important. It is the most abundant carbohydrate in biosphere. And it can be hydrolyzed into soluble sugars. So a single cellulose can be broken down into multiple disaccharides and monosaccharides, which are cellulose soluble again. Next example, pectin, hemicellulose. So cellulose, pectin and hemicellulose. These are components. These are the three components responsible for formation of cellulose, cell wall. Cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. These are the three components responsible for formation of cell wall. The cellulose will be functioning as structural framework. Forming a chain molecules. Hemicellulose will be basically binding the cellulose chain together. Make it a note. Hemicellulose will bind the cellulose chain together, and the pectin is that substance which will be holding them together. Its pectin is cementing substance. Pectin is my cementing substance. Hemicellulose is the one which is holding this, binding this cellulose chain together, and the cellulose is the one which is responsible for forming a chain and providing a structural framework. So all these three together, cellulose, pectin and hemicellulose, are responsible for formation of cellulose, cell wall, which is present in the plants. Particularly I'm speaking about the plant cell wall, and it will be pectins are made up of arabinose, galactose and galactonic acid. We have seen that. Next is mucopolysaccharides. These are the third type of polysaccharides, which are mainly the slimy substances which are called as mucilages. As you have seen in the case of roots, the root tip will be secreting some slimy oily substance which is called as mucilage. Similarly, you have also seen in the case of digestive system, the digestive system will be basically releasing some specific substance called as mucus, that is also mucilaginous mucopolysaccharides, right? And apart from this, there are examples like agar, which is basically found from the algae, which is used for cultivating the bacteria. Mucopolysaccharides are also found in the kingdom Monera. You would have seen it is in the form of capsules and slime layers. It is the outermost part of the cell wall, even out of the cell wall, which is called as slime layer or capsule, which is also formed of mucopolysaccharides. It is also found in connective tissues as well as body fluids. In our body also we can see the mucopolysaccharides, like the RBCs also, above the RBCs in the form of antigens and all that. They are responsible for providing the lubrication to ligaments and tendons. We have already seen in the connective tissues what are the ligaments and what are the tendons. So whenever the movement is occurring, they have to be basically very less friction, and this is basically taken care with by this lubricating fluids, which is nothing but the mucilages, mucopolysaccharides. Hyaluronic acid is also found in connective tissues and also in the vitreous humor of the eye. The eye is basically containing a specific substance that is again nothing but my mucopolysaccharide, which is called vitreous humor. It is also present in synovial fluid, the fluid which is present in the junctions between the two bones, and it is also present in the cerebrospinal fluid, the fluid which is present in my central nervous system, that is brain and there is a brain and the spinal cord. So it is a type of fluid which is present in the brain and spinal cord, there is central nervous system. So it is also responsible for formation of cerebrospinal fluid, vitreous humor, synovial fluid, and providing lubrication, ligaments and tendons, etc. Last one, heparin. Heparin is the anticoagulant present in the human blood. It is responsible for basically preventing the coagulation of the blood. Okay, and it is also a type of mucopolysaccharide where the sulfated glucosamine and sulfated iduronic acids are present to form as the anticoagulant heparin. So that was about this polysaccharides. That was about the polysaccharides, and up to this we are done with the polysaccharides, carbohydrates. What we have done what are the biomolecules, what are the type of biomolecules, that is macromolecule and macromolecule, the differences. Then we have seen the metabolites and their types, that is the primary metabolites and secondary metabolites and the differences. Then we have started with the carbohydrates, what are carbohydrates, aldoses and ketoses, and then we have seen what are the different types of carbohydrates. It can be monosaccharide, disaccharide, tetrasaccharides. Well, in the case of monosaccharide, it can be basically triose, tetrose, pentose, hexose. Okay, we have seen all of them. And then in the case of disaccharides, we have seen this lactose, maltose, etc. Right, sucrose, which are disaccharides in nature, reducing sugar, non-reducing sugar. We have seen. Then we have seen the trisaccharides, again some examples, and then the pentose, then the tetrasaccharides are basically not too much found. Okay, and then we have seen polysaccharides. We have seen the differences between the oligosaccharides and the polysaccharides as well. Oligosaccharides are sweet in taste, soluble in nature. Polysaccharides are not. Okay, and there are basically polysaccharides. We have seen the three types: the storage, structure, and the mucilage. Storage, we have seen the starch, glycogen. Okay, and glycogen contains amylose, amylopectin. Starch contains amylose, amylopectin, 1,4 and 1,6 linkage, while the glycogen is very condensed molecule having highly branched compound branch, and again having 1,4 and 1,6 linkage, glycosidic linkage. And then we have seen the cellulose, which is having straight chain compound, beta cellulose, made up of chain of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectin. And last one was the mucopolysaccharides containing the responsible for formation of vitreous humor, synovial fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, and mucilage in the case of plants, and also heparin also type of mucopolysaccharide responsible for anticoagulation phenomena. That was all about this polysaccharides. Okay, so we'll be starting with the amino acids in the next lecture.